In step 2, it is possible to select up to 3 outcomes which are affected by this program. An outcome is defined as a positive change in a life circumstance that can be affected by an activity of an organisation. If you are adding more than one outcome, it is important to avoid double counting the benefit you create and overstating your social impact. We recommend abiding by the following principles to avoid double counting. Always prioritise the outcome your program is most likely to impact upon, regardless of the relative sizes of social value. To think about which outcome takes the most priority, think about the desired outcome of your program. For example, it is more likely that a training program for unemployed people has the ultimate desired outcome of employment. And so the outcome prioritized should be employment, not increasing confidence, even though the program may do that too. In the case of the Super Skills program, the desired outcomes are improved numeracy and adequate computer skills. When adding outcomes for the same individual, think carefully about whether the value of one outcome would also capture the benefit of another. In the case of the Super Skills program, we can add the outcomes for both improved numeracy and improved computer skills if the individual achieves them both, because one does not imply the other. But for the jobs training program example just mentioned, one should not add the value of confidence for those who achieved employment, because the confidence comes partly from being employed. If you are adding the outcomes that could encompass one another, but for different people, this is acceptable. So I could record Adam as achieving employment and Ben as achieving increased confidence. The maximum number of outcomes you can measure is 3. We define a program as a set of structured activities with common aim. It may be that if you're trying to include more than 3 outcomes, you're considering a broader range of activities than we consider a program. For example, if the Super Skills program was accompanied by a social group and I could cost the support provided for the social group separately, I would count this as a separate program. In the case of the Super Skills program, gaining mathematical skills does not capture whether or not you have also adequate computer skills. Some people on the program may achieve one of these outcomes, some none, and some both. For each outcome, there is a description and the evidence required, as well as a box of the assumptions made. Generally, the evidence required is the survey question, which you can find by clicking on the Survey tab. You need to ask the survey question before the program as well as after, so it's worth planning to measure the social impact of a program before you start. In some instances, administrative data can provide sufficient evidence. We will go through this more in step 4. The tool asks you to add the assumptions you've made. This is essential so that when you're sharing the results of the tool, people understand the thought process that you went through when applying values. The most common type of assumption is where the data has already been collected and does not exactly match the survey question from which the value was derived. Here the assumption would be that the value is a close enough proxy for the change about which the organisation has data. For example, this could be the case here if before survey has already been conducted and used a similar question on numeracy but on a different scale. There is more information on what kind of assumptions you might add here in the user guide. I shall now add the outcomes for the Super Skills program. I've chosen improved numeracy. For improved numeracy, I make the assumption that the participant is comparing their numeracy skills to the same comparison point in the before and after survey. I would like to add another outcome. The value calculator asks me whether I'm sure that I would like to add another outcome. This is to reduce the risk of double counting benefits. The second outcome I would like to add is adequate computer skills. I'm using the computer skills outcome in line with the way it was calculated and make no further assumptions. The final decision to make in step 2 is how long you assume the benefits last for. The estimated length of time benefits will last for is set at a minimum of 1 month and a maximum of 1 year. It is most conservative to assume that the value only lasts the length of time after the activity that the survey is taken. For example, if the survey is taken 3 months later, then the value can be seen as lasting for at least 3 months. It is best to be conservative unless you have a strong reason to believe that the value lasts longer. If you do deviate from this assumption, please base your assumptions as much as possible on data. This may be data from running the program previously, another organization's data, or from an academic paper. It is assumed that the social benefits last a maximum of 1 year because longer-term benefits become increasingly difficult to attribute to a specific program.